So Piers, what can I say? I can't really introduce Piers because he has been such a brave person in our world, and over the last year there has been so much that he has done, along with probably others who are here. But it has been quite a year for him, I know. But he has done so much work for all of us, and I will always be grateful. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I think it's morning. No, it's afternoon. So,
Can you help with the drive, or do you want me to?
yeah. How do I change the slides? Just that one. Great, thank you. So, yeah, first of all, just real thank you to everyone here for listening and coming. And as everyone said, like the bravery. So, I'll be honest, my way of coping with boarding school was not to talk. I was good at sports, but I learned it was not safe to speak. So often I dissociate when I'm talking in front of people. So if I do that, please forgive me. So what I'm going to talk about today. So I'll begin just sharing what I'm going to talk about, a little thank you. Also a bit of the backstory, some of what's happened this year. And also a bit about why make the film? Why did we do this? How we made it, some of the processes, and the idea, Paul, Boarding School Concern, was about the creative process. What's the response been as well? And then finally, what's next? So, I'm going to begin, usually people end with a thank you, I'm going to begin with a thank you. So I wouldn't be stood here without Michelle Dawn Silcox. As many of you know, she was my wife who passed away earlier on this year. And she supported me last 20 years, and I would have just given up, but she was just by my side so much. So real big thank you to her. Simon, Ben and Shearer, the production team, the director, they were just amazing. It was just so great working as a team. It's very easy doing the creative process to just want to give up. And working together was amazing. Also all the experts, there's Nick, there's Suzanne, there's so many people who supported us, Zena, and yeah, I say at the end there, it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a village to make a documentary or to make a book, and sometimes we don't see that. There were so many supporters. There were people donated, reviewed the film, then were ambassadors of the film, and sometimes that's in the background and we don't see that. And that was so powerful to see. And I think that was a big part of the healing. It wasn't just me, especially after Michelle died. It was like everyone just came together. It's like I had so many hundreds of emails. So thank you to everyone who did email me if I didn't reply. And then finally, the thank you is Boarding School Concern, for the premiere in London. Pippa, Paul, so many. It was like, and I'll kind of touch on that in a bit, but it was like, how are we going to do this premiere? Especially so I didn't want to get out of bed. So that's really kind of the thank you. So I'll share a little bit of the backstory. I thought I'd begin with that. So 7th of February, 2025, I am so stressed. I realised I've taken on a lot. We've got the premiere in 3 weeks. We've got 5 weeks. We've got the online release. And then we've agreed, it was my idea, to do 3 live webinars. And I'm like, oh my God. And that Thursday night, the 6th, I didn't sleep. And my wife was away staying at friends, house sitting. And I'm like, on the Friday, I went down and I said, I'm so stressed. I had a cry. She gave me a hug and she says, it's going to be okay. You can do this. And I'm like, I just can't do it. I'm just so stressed. And on the Saturday morning, so I stayed overnight at my friend's house. And on the Saturday morning, I said, you've got to come and come back home. She'd been asked to stay for another week. And she said, yep, I'll be back tomorrow. So the next day, I get a phone call from my friend where Michelle is house sitting. He says, you need to sit down. I said, okay, I'll sit down. And he says, I've got some sad news to tell you. And I'm godfather to his children, me and Michelle. I'm like, oh, is it his child? I'm really worried. And he says, it's Michelle. She's had a heart attack and died. And the reason I share this story is that sometimes when we're doing a creative project, we think we're at a 10. We're like, I can't do any more. And then suddenly this came along. It was like, what the hell? How the hell am I going to do this? So then I had a funeral to arrange. And it was interesting. I was thinking that this morning, that the funeral was on the 17th of March, 2 days after the global release of the film. And that's the thing with the creative project. My coach, when I began this in 2022, he said, know that it's going to be 10 times harder than you ever imagine. It's probably been a lot harder than that, to be honest, to do that. But, you know, and the final piece there is just, I think it was Tuesday after Michelle died. It was like, I just had to get out, run. I had to get out and, you know, get back. I think there's the psychiatrist, Phil Stutz, who says the worse you feel, the more committed you are to your protocols, and that's what I did. I just got out, ran, spent time with friends, and I grieved. Thank you. So this is me, age 11, at boarding school, Christ Hospital. It's quite obvious. There's quite a few of us in the audience here. And first day, I'm very fresh-faced. I'm really looking forward to it. And then this is me 7 years later. I was captain of athletics, first in rugby, first 11, football. I was one of the drum majors for a period of time, so I'd lead the 100-piece marching band out. And on the surface, I seemed like I was a success. So I went from 1986 till 1993, and yeah, it was only really in 2000, I was working in the financial sector in London, and I started to have a breakdown. And within a few months, my father, who was an ex-boarder, he died. I became homeless, and I was struggling with addictions. I left my partner, I left my job. And for the next few years, I just kind of fell apart. I went to Africa. And in 2002, synchronicities, I was saying this to a friend last night, it was like, yeah, suddenly there goes the dissociation. I just got given this book, The Making of Then. I'm suddenly like, oh my God, it all started to piece together. That's why I am like I am. And so I started to write my story down in 2005. I got back into work and things like that, so I didn't finish it. So I began writing it again in 2020. And I started also by biographies at the time. And I was saying this to a friend, it was a bit like a double or a triple blind study. I would go into a charity shop, my wife would be looking at clothes, and I would look at the biographies and I'd go, did they go to boarding school? And yeah, Richard Branson went to boarding school. I'd buy it and take it home, and I've got 50 of these now. And what would shock me each time was probably 95% of them had horrific times, from rape to sexual abuse to losing a stone in weight to all of these things. And I'm like, each time I'd buy one, Clive Woodward I got recently. No, he ran away 3 times. He was beaten with a foot of rope each day. I'm like, wow. And so that then made me kind of think, after the book was rejected in 2021, I started to rewrite, and I was like, actually, there's a bigger picture here. If these leaders, these people who've been to these schools, how might that impact everyone else? So it's not just about my story. And so I spoke to Ben, who is a director, and Simon Hinckley, who's been the producer in the film industry for many years, and both of them was like, yeah, we'd be up for doing this. So that was 2022. Then we spent the next few years filming. Nick was the first person we filmed, then we filmed Joy, and everyone was so helpful. It's like, yeah, we'll speak Zena, Suzanne, and then, Gabor, it was like, the synchronicities there. he wasn't doing any interviews. And I remember going up, and I just had a sense, yeah, we'll interview him. And I remember going up to him. Suzanne invited us up to the conference, and I went with my book, and if people have seen my books, they're filled with Post-it notes. And he looked at the book and he goes, wow, you've read that? And I was like, yeah, I'm making a documentary called about trauma-infused politics, which is one of his chapters. He said, wow, that sounds amazing. I said, well, we'd love you to be in it. And he says, email me. And he passed his email address. I was like, oh. And within 4 days, we'd driven up to Scotland and we'd interviewed him. So, yeah, this is some of the filming. So this is Zena and Ben. And then this was the first day of filming at my friend's grave, which, if you've not seen the documentary yet, we'll be showing this afternoon. But essentially, that was one of the things once I started to have my breakdown, was to realize that not only had my best friend, one of my best friends, committed suicide while in the school, but then the school sent us to the priest who then sexually abused me. So that was what I was processing. How am I doing time-wise? 10 minutes, okay. I'll take a breath. So, why make the film? And so, as I was reading through these biographies, I'm like, and reading a lot of trauma work and then speaking to people on my podcast, I'm like, and this statement from Jung came out. The psychological rule says that when an inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside as fate. And then Peter Levine's word, the impact of trauma may not be fully conscious, but it is certainly fully active. What this means is that the man who was hit as a child will feel compelled to hit as an adult. And I started to play around in my mind's eye. It was like looking at Joy's work. If the man who was hit as a child, or the man who was abandoned as a child, will feel compelled to abandon as an adult. The man who was bereaved as a child will feel compelled to bereave as an adult. The man who was held captive as a child. And I was just like, oh my God. And then looking at Nick's works, page 268, I think, in Wounded Leaders, the same thing. It's like just putting them in. I'm like, how is this going to be impacting society? And so I was like, is there a database out there? And they was like, no. So I started to create this database. And I went through a lot of Wikipedia and just online articles, and I started to create a database of these people who'd been to boarding school. And each day, each week, I come across a new one. And one of the ones I came across last week was Jeffrey Hinton, who's the godfather of AI. He went to Clifton College. And I'm like, oh my God, another ex-boarder. And these are some of the most powerful men and women in the world. So David Cameron, Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, Rupert Murdoch, Jensen Huang. And it's not as if when I read their stories, it's like, oh, they had a great time. Jensen Huang, world's sixth richest man, he was sent to a Baptist boarding school, but he was sent too early. And so his parents didn't actually understand what it was. And so, again, he was bullied and had a really difficult time. Richard Branson, King Charles, Tony Blair, Christopher Wray, the former FBI director, James Dyson, Mark Zuckerberg, Catherine, Princess of Wales, and there's another 280 names on there of people who have been to these schools. And I just thought, wait a minute, how is that impacting everybody else? So, how we made it. So we began 2022 and we started to just piece together, well, what might it look like? And it eventually, I kind of saw this idea of a ship coming into harbour. So I was originally from Portsmouth. And when a ship comes into a harbour, one of these big battleships, they have these big ropes. And in order to get that big piece of rope over to the other side of the harbour, they first fire an arrow over with a little piece of string, and then you pull the string, and then it's another piece of rope, and then you pull another piece, and then it's a bigger. And I was like, maybe that's how we tell this story. We begin with my journey. it's just me. This is just my experience. But then going, oh, the retreatants, pulling the next piece. There's actually other people who've had similar experiences. And then pulling it again, going, well, what about our leaders? And then suddenly it was like, oh, that's how we tell the story. And we met weekly via Zoom, and that was really great for just keeping us on track. We filmed on location. We went to my old boarding school. That was the first day. If you see the beginning of the film, where I'm walking up to the gates, it's the first time I'd been filmed. I was ridiculously nervous. The security guard came out and goes, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, oh my God. And then a teacher saw us and says, "So what are you doing here then?" And I'm like, oh no, they're gonna, arrest us. And we're like, oh, we're making a documentary. Oh, what about? Just about my life. I didn't say what it was about. Then we did lots of interviews. We interviewed people all over the UK, and so people were so generous with their time. Nick gave us a couple of interviews and spoke to Joy, and we spoke to, as I've said, so many different people. Then we did this amazing retreat, and there's a few of the retreatants here, and that was so powerful. I cried so much. It was so beautiful hearing other people's stories, the men and the women. It was just that community. And one of the therapists said to me that our trauma was created in a group, and therefore the healing is created in a group. And that's what I see in this room, group of people, and it's like, wow, this is where one of the aspects of the healing happens. The next stage was editing. Ben spent thousands of hours editing all of these, hundreds of hours of footage. And he just did such a fantastic job. Then we sent it out to people, feedback. What did they think? 5 minutes, great, thank you. How am I doing, guys? 3 minutes. Then we did... so editing, we did the editing, then we got feedback, and then, final aspect was just financed through donations on our own time, which, so big thank you to everyone who supported us. So what was the creative process like? Yeah, it was great. Working as a team, having that accountability, but also when stuff came up, and stuff always comes up in these things. And it was just because we'd done a lot of... we'd met through the Mankind Project. We just had a framework going, okay, I'm struggling today, and work through. Communication was great, and I just loved doing the interviews, but I was ridiculously nervous for the Gabor Mate interview. We'd driven up 4 hours in the rain. We got there, and I was just like, at the beginning going, you can kind of see that in some of the footage. We had to cut that out, and I was like, okay, I was a bit too nervous for that. The challenges I found was watching all the footage, because it was my story, my trauma, to watch this thing 50 to 100 times. So last few minutes, reading, studying, that helped the creative process. And then how has the film been making? I felt by sharing my story, I would get shamed. And when I first put a video onto YouTube in 2015, I didn't put it up there for 6 months because I was frightened that everyone would shame me. And I've just had hundreds of thousands of messages over the years, and the opposite has been true. It's like, thank you. The community, that's been such a big part of the healing. And so many people from my school have reached out to me, and the kind of connecting link that the word people have used the most is the word for our school was feral. The response, over 2,000 people have seen it. We've had 4 screenings, London, Hebden Bridge, Stroud, Totnes. 750 people have seen it. And it's just opened up this discussion with families going, I think you need to see this, Mum, or I think you need to see this, Dad. And then we've got a planned screening for Edinburgh, 2026, and some other interesting ones. If you would like to show, do a screening, organise one, please do email us. We're going to just keep doing that, the documentary. How many minutes have I got? 1 minute left. Look at that. I did it. We're also looking, I think, in the new year, putting it for free onto YouTube. just to get it out there. I'm going to keep recording the podcast. We've got up to 145 now, and most of those are ex-boarders sharing their stories. So we'll be showing it this afternoon. We're doing a Q&A with Zena, Suzanne, myself, and I think, and Morag Edwards as well. So thank you so much to all of you guys for all your support. Really appreciate you. And that's it. Bless you.